What's up, YouTube? We are live. Just give me a minute. I am going to share this with our community and let them know that we're live. Yanni, why don't you say hello while I do this?
Yeah, I'm just flicking over to my headphones so that you don't get that silly echo that I always annoy you with.
Yeah,
I do. Everybody.
I do
You have
love
to
I do love the
have
echo.
to excuse me. I've just come back from Brazil and I am so jet lagged.
Hang on a sec. Can you tap your microphone?
Test, test, test.
Yeah. Okay. Keep it closer to your mouth. It wasn't.
Is it all good?
Yeah, it wasn't working that great
Okay.
when you were just saying that. All right. We're out there. We're out in the world. We're out there. Hello, everybody. Sorry we didn't go live last week. Yanni was in Brazil, so I gave him a little bit of time.
Yeah, I was. In the first week, we were good because I was in Sorocaba, which is part of Sao Paulo. It's like Parramatta's Sao Paulo's Parramatta, an outskirt. You know that Sao Paulo. I didn't realize this. Sao Paulo has 22 million people in the greater metropolitan district. We have 28 million in Australia. Yeah. That one city has almost as many people as we have in our entire country. I couldn't believe it. It is a big city. I think it ranks in the top 5 biggest cities in the world. It was unbelievable. Anyway, yeah, crazy. And I learned that my girlfriend, who is now my fiance, is
drum roll, please,
from the Bronx, mate. Yeah, I dropped a knee over in Brazil, and she took me to where she grew up in the favela, and man, it is like hardcore. It's like what you see in the movies, I had to take my watch off and everything before I got out of the car, so I didn't get robbed. But anyway, I'm super jet lagged. Yeah, in the second week, I was in Jericoacoara, which is this beautiful little beach town on the sand in the northeast, and it was a bit harder to get good internet and things like that. So we just didn't do it. So it wasn't going to be a good stream. But I'm back, and I'm battling jet lag.
Yep. Well, welcome back.
And I don't advise anyone, if you're traveling from Australia to South America, don't go via Doha and Qatar and make it like a 40-hour marathon. It's not worth it. Just go straight to Chile and then Brazil and do it in 18 hours. Yeah. Oh, man, it was a mistake. So what have you got for me this week, Brad?
Well, yeah. So for those of you tuning in, I watch other fitness YouTubers, right? I just want to be aware of what other people, what content other people are doing, and funnily enough, for our audience, you guys might laugh at this. I only actually became aware of a guy named Dr. Mike Israetel sometime this year. It might have only been 6 months ago or so, and I started watching some of his videos, which. The ones that I watched that were that got me looking at his stuff are these ones, these exercise scientist critiques, and I thought it was funny. It was it's a side of it's an angle for videos that I wouldn't particularly take myself, because the whole perspective is. I know more than other people, and that's why you should listen to me. Recently, I watched a video that came up by this guy here, where Dr. Mike Israetels PhD has come under fire by this guy here. He has pulled apart his PhD and shown a whole bunch of flaws in it, grammatical errors and things that have caused the fitness community, the greater fitness community, to start really pulling apart these science-based lifters. And that is what I talked to Yanni about this morning. And I just wanted to know if he had an opinion on it, and he definitely does and definitely did. So that's what we wanted to talk about today. It's an interesting topic for us because a lot of these YouTubers, a lot of their content comes from the perspective of critiquing others, and coming from the stance of I know more than this person, and so that's why you shouldn't listen to this. And it's interesting to be seeing the fallout of this young Aussie guy who has ripped apart Mike's PhD, and apparently Mike Israetel has released what the actual final draft of the PhD was 3 days later, and it's just an interesting thing to be watching sort of play out, isn't it, Yanni?
I think it's super interesting. What was that little chime? Did you hear that?
I did not.
No, that was in my computer, was it? Interesting. Only in my ears I'm hearing things. Man, I'm tired. I think the worst thing. Okay, so first of all, I'll say that I had no idea who this guy was. I've seen his thumbnails of his videos pop up before. I've seen maybe 10 minutes of his content. I just thought he was a dick. I didn't like his attitude. I didn't like the way he spoke. And I have my mentors over the years. By far the most influential mentor to me was Tony Battaji, who now calls himself Dr. Tony Battaji using his PhD. But he fought that for so many decades because he just didn't. I believe his opinion was that he didn't deserve to be called a doctor. Doctors are medical doctors. And I know a lot of PhDs in sports science that feel the same way. But the point was that he was competing with people like Dr. Lane Norton and these other guys who do because it's marketable, and so he's sort of resorted to doing that recently. But the thing I dislike about this whole spat on social media is that it kind of discredits everybody who's got a PhD in the sports science field, and people like Tony Battaji certainly deserve the accolade of doctor. He is frankly a brilliant human and one of the smartest dudes I've ever met, and I'm lucky to call, and I feel very blessed and lucky to call him a friend and a mentor. He's had a profound impact on both of us in the way we train. Lane Norton also has, and I have a lot of respect for the guy. I don't know him personally like I do with Tony, and but then also the other person who's had a big impact on me is the late Charles Poliquin, who wasn't a PhD and used to sort of not rag on it, but he had that opinion of like, if I look at your results more than your accolades and how many and what you can speak about and what can you produce in yourself and your clients, and that's what's going to impress me more than a certificate saying that you've achieved this at university. Anyway, my concern with this whole fallout is that it's going to discredit people like Tony as well. But then on the flip side, this whole science-based lifter fall from grace, I think, is because when you speak from such a high ivory tower, there's a long way to fall when someone exposes you, and that's what's happening to this fella. I don't think he's even hit the ground yet. He's still falling, from that ivory tower, because he's spoken from such an angle of, discrediting everyone else because authority, and now people are, his PhDs come under question but I'm not sure we can say the same about Lane Norton. Like I think.
Well, the only reason Lane even got dragged into this is I shared this video with Yanni from Greg Duchette. Yanni doesn't even know who these guys are. Yanni doesn't watch fitness influencer videos. I do from time to time because as I said, I do most of our YouTube content, and I want to keep my finger on the pulse with what people are doing. But if you didn't know who Greg Duchette is, this is him here. And the only reason why Lane Norton got dragged into this apparently is because of a comment that he wrote as a response to, that's Mike Israetel there. Lane Norton wrote a comment trying to heavily discredit this guy who has called out Mike Israetel and his PhD, which is this guy here. That's the guy. Anyway, yeah.
And he's studying to be a lawyer, apparently. This guy here.
Yeah, right. Mm.
That's as far as I know, the little tiny bit of research I've done, and it's funny because I don't know anyone better to discredit someone else than someone who's studying law, because man, they're so good at digging into the minutiae of fucking everything. My partner, my fiance, is a lawyer, and I've had her help me on a few things, and it's just bizarre. They just love to read the fine print, That's the difference, I think, between lawyers and everybody else. They actually read the fine print, and that's what they're paid for, and they actually enjoy it, and they dig into it, and it's like a passion. And I'm just like, oh my God, how can you enjoy going through all that content, So this guy, I think, arguably is probably the best person to critique someone's PhD, because he's going to look at it like a lawyer, and just they're vultures, mate. They look at the fine print.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a funny thing, because what Yanni and I both really liked about, again, I didn't know who this guy was, Tanner Shuck, but his video on what...
His video was great.
His video was really good, because Yanni and I do share his opinion on science-based lifting, which is really, at the end of the day, these guys that are putting out these science-based lifting videos, it's it's all about, like, if you're not training in this way that this most current research is supporting, then you're missing out on huge gains. And of course, as YouTubers, they're always releasing a new video every month that has their take on a new study which changes the way that you should train, because this new study now says that training full length partials reps, are the way to go, or leaving reps in reserve is the way to go, or going to absolute, like, it's always changing. And what this guy Tanner's take is that you just fucking lift heavy, lift heavy, get strong at squatting, deadlifting, benching, shoulder pressing, and pull-ups and dips, and you're going to get a great result. And at the grassroots of it, that is absolutely what Yanni and I agree with. Of course, in the unified movement,
common sense lifting. Yeah.
Of course, in the unified movement
lifting
system, the concern with that approach, when that's all that's my only concern with that video, because I do agree with the sentiment of it, but my only concern with it is that I was nodding my head and saying, yep, this all makes sense, unless you're somebody that has an injury. Because if you're somebody that has an injury, or if you've got a compromised body, then the idea of I'm just going to go into the gym and lift heavy is what causes so many people, contacting us saying, I don't know what to do. I'm so confused. Every time I try to do a shoulder press, I get shoulder pain. That's when, the structural balance training and, foundational, building a solid foundation needs to be taken care of. You need to iron out your imbalances.
I think that whole argument has a monster caveat, which is that as long as you're following or making structural balance the foundation of the way you approach those lifts. Because if someone goes and just does the same thing over and over and over again and creates an enormous imbalance in their body or their physique, we know that it creates problems, and it is the limitation that most people stumble on and end up needing help with.
Yep.
But his concept is the same. And, Tony Battaglio used to say this to us all the time, like, the way to get strong hasn't changed much over the last 50 to 100 years. We have different ways of explaining it, but the actual methodology, the actual process, the principles are the same, and if you apply progressive overload, supercompensation, and just be consistent, you with good program periodization, you're going to get really good results, And I think sometimes the science-based lifters might try to lean on their background or their education to confuse people a little bit, or make it sound more complex than it needs to be, and then it's easier to sell their way of coaching or their product or whatever, because this is the answer to solve that complexity or that confusion. And it was the same with this recent protein video that we critiqued from Jeremy, it was just creating confusion, unnecessary confusion amongst our tribe. And we thought, well, this needs to be cleared up. And I think what I loved about Old Matey that you just showed there, his rebuttal video about this whole thing, is that he pokes some decent holes in sports science in general. And that is that it's quite new, and it's full of problems, because a lot of the studies that people lean on are done on untrained individuals. They're not done on people who have been training for decades, and it kind of gets a little bit tricky when you're comparing that to someone who's trained for years and years and years, who has X, Y, and Z issues in their body that need to be observed or taken into consideration.
Yeah, and I'd like to share with the audience a spot, well, something that heavily influenced where Yanni and my opinion on this comes from. Yanni and I worked with a guy named Ian King, who is the strength coach for the Australian Olympic team, one of the head strength coaches, and he had been for 30 years or so at the time that we worked with him. When we worked with him, I'm not sure how old he would have been, but he would have been at least in his 60s, maybe late 60s. And in the time that he was the strength coach, or the head strength coach, I guess you'd call him, for the Australian Olympic team, his athletes had won over 60 medals and something like 30 gold medals or something like that. Like, it was an incredible record of coaching the best of the best. And when we worked with him, it was really interesting on many, many reasons. One of them is that it was a room of personal trainers. It's the first time he's worked with anybody but Olympic athletes he told us, for 18 years, he hadn't worked with anybody but Olympic athletes. And the only reason we were able to work with him is because Tony Battaglia had a connection with him, and he was able to organize it for us. And so we did this workshop with him, and he had no curriculum planned. Tony had just booked him for a day for us, and we sat down in a room with him, and he said, "What do you guys want to learn? What are you here for? Go around the room." And he asked me first, and I said, Olympic lifting. I'd love to learn more about Olympic lifting. And about half the room, or maybe more, said, yeah, Olympic lifting. And so then, at the time, I was the most flexible person in the room. And he said, all right, let's have a look at your flexibility. And he went out and looked at what I could do. And he said, you don't meet the standards for Olympic lifting. And I went, what? And then he looked at everybody else, and everybody else was so shit. And we were there for 8 hours. He spent 6 hours with us working on flexibility. And everybody, all these personal trainers,
He basically showed us how to stretch.
All these personal trainers who were jacked, and they couldn't do any of it. It was so funny. And then at the he just looked at them and he said, if you guys came to me as an athlete, the only thing I would work with you on. Wow, there's something coming through your microphone.
Yeah, it's a horn outside. Someone's
great.
Someone's going nuts.
Oh, okay. Yeah. The only thing, I'm just going to mute you until you're talking again, Yanni, so it's okay. They can't hear you. But it was so funny because, he said, if you guys came to me as an athlete, if you were an athlete and you came to me, the only thing that I would work on with you for your first 12 months would be flexibility, because you're all so inflexible that you don't even meet the standards for Olympic lifting. And then in the very last hour, he said, all right, let's do a little bit of Olympic lifting. And he just taught us some of the basics. But anyway, my point that I really wanted to say about this was really interesting, because we had a room filled with personal trainers that every one of us walked in there with tickets on ourselves. We all thought we were better than we were. And he really, for Yanni and I, we walked out of that room. That was probably one of the first times where we walked out going, wow, we don't know as much as what we think we did. And it really took us on a journey. This was in 2012. So that was part of what, that was actually one of the real catalysts that led to the UMS, wasn't it, Yanni? It was one of the things that when we walked out of that seminar, we were like, we need to find a way to combine flexibility in our training. Anyway, one of the things that he said over and over again, which was really interesting, was these coaches would often quote studies that were like a rebuttal to what he was saying. That's what you always get whenever you do these upskilling workshops as a personal trainer. There's always guys in there that want to say, oh, but doesn't this study say that? And what you're saying contradicts that. And Ian King said the same response every single time someone asked it. He said, have you used that study to get results on yourself? And the guys would always go, oh, no. And he said, have you used that to get results with your clients? And they said, no. And he said, then don't fucking quote the study to me. And he did swear as well. He said, fuck a lot. He goes, don't fucking quote the study to me, because it means nothing. If you haven't used it to be able to get something, then it really means nothing. This whole, it goes back to this idea of, if you want to get good results, focus on the basics and get strong, and make sure that you've got a decent level of flexibility. If you haven't got that, then work on that as well. And that's where the biggest results are going to come from.
Yeah. Have you unmuted me?
I have, yeah.
Oh, yeah, because it's the renovation downstairs, unfortunately. There's nothing I can do about it. They're probably going to keep going. Sounds like they're drilling or doing something. I apologize, everybody. Look, I think this is really interesting, because it's this whole thing that's going on, and this exposure of the whole concept of science-based lifting. The earliest influence I had of this was Charles Poliquin. He used to talk more about results than accolades, framed accolades on the wall. And I really want to be clear. I'm not poo-pooing the idea of going to university and getting a degree and doing a PhD, but I just do think that the problem here is that these guys have almost used that to critique or create this position of power. And it's the fact that they poo-poo other people so much that have exposed them to this critique of themselves. This guy has brought it on himself. And I only needed to watch 10 minutes of content from, is it Mike?
Mike Israetels,
the guy that's being Mike Israetels. And I just thought the guy was a dickhead and didn't want to listen to him. And I thought I'd rather listen to people that I know, like, and trust, like Tony or Charles or even Lane. But
or somebody if you want to talk about it, a YouTuber that pops into mind, and somebody that we met and know as a friend, Daniel Vadnal from Fitness FAQs. He's somebody that I love and that I really respect. He's somebody who, if you want to talk about results, like, you look at that guy, man, that dude has results to boot. And he doesn't speak from this position of shredding everybody else. It's just sharing what's worked for him and what works. That's a great example of the other end.
And he happens to be a really well educated guy. He's done a physio degree. So you don't have to use your degree. You don't have to flaunt your degree to get respect. I think I think there are ways of doing it.
Yeah, and just a real quick shout out to Abdi Muhammad, who's said hello from Ohio in the USA. Hey, Abdi, great to have you with us, mate. Whoever else is watching, say hello. Tell us where you're watching from, so we know that we're talking to you and we can give you a shout out.
Yeah, and do us a favor, always even though we're just here talking shit, two guys on the internet, give us a like and say hi, because it does help boost our algorithm potential. I should have forewarned everyone that this is not going to be an educational deep dive, this conversation, because I traveled 40 hours yesterday. And
because Yanni and I are highly uneducated, so
we're certainly not doctors.
Totally raw has said Yanni has a very New South Wales accent, very different from a Victorian accent. I haven't picked that up. How come I haven't noticed that Victorians have got a different accent? But you know what? In Australia, I don't know what it's like in Victoria, but if you can go to two different parts of Sydney and people talk totally differently. Like there's a real different accent in the west than there is in the east and on the lower North Shore. So
interestingly, this actually came up while I was in Brazil, because Leticia's family, who most of them don't speak English at all, and some of them speak a little bit of English, but the people that did speak English said, you have a good English, we can understand you. But when we were in Australia, we couldn't understand half of the people. And I thought, oh, wow, really? So they said, I'm well spoken for an Australian. So there you go. I thought I was pretty country. I've had people say, because I grew up in the country, that I'm pretty country, you know. But anyway.
Yeah. Country bumpkins.
Yeah, I think this is going to be interesting to watch play out, whether the science-based lifters lose total credibility, the way that they handle this. You know, it's always the problem of building a reputation around one specific thing that's not related to your tribe and your client's success. It's related to you and what you've done and what you've got written on a piece of paper. I think is a bit of a worry, you know. But these guys, like I know Lane. I know he produces amazing results. I mean, I don't know him personally, but I know that he produces amazing results. He has in his own body, and he has it in his own strength with his powerlifting, and coming back from a pretty bad spine, like back injury, where he was written off basically, you know, and in his early bodybuilding days. And I know that he has a lot of clients around the world who get great results too. So I've got a lot of respect for him. That's what I like to look at more. I don't always, and I know that our friend Ben Pekulski's had his differences with Lane because the way that he makes a living out of chopping other people down a bit, you know. He's often a little bit too critical of other people and other people's methodologies, which, you know, there is a lot of bullshit that needs to be called out in the industry, and I like that about Lane. But Ben's argument has often been, you know, do you have to do it so condescendingly, so aggressively?
Ben Pekulski, you're saying?
Ben Pekulski, yeah.
Couple more shout outs. HPM 79, evening chaps, love a science debate. Thank you very much. And Richard Burton's tuning in from Florida. Richard is one of our tribe members. Great to have you on the stream, Richard. Yeah, Abdi is as well. Yeah. We got a couple of tribe members here. Love it. Yeah. Look, it's I mean, you know, Yanni and I.
Tell us what you guys think. Is anyone that's watching aware of this whole spat?
Yeah, has anyone seen this stuff? I'm gonna link the videos that we watched so that you guys can have a look at them in your own time.
I'd love to know what people that are watching think about the science-based lifting movement as well. And even science is biased. HPM is saying, 100%. Look, as what we said earlier, one of the videos I think there, I don't know which one it is that Rad's linked, addresses this. There are flaws in sports science because so much of the research is done on such small cohorts of people who are untrained, you know, and then we're trying to use that data to make decisions for people like us who have been training for 10, 20 years, who are, you know, psychologically ready to take our bodies to a different level to the vast majority of people. And so much of science is based on general populations and even elderly people. And then we're looking at that and going, oh, how are we to interpret that based on what we're doing and who we are and how we train? So it's you've always got to take it with a grain of salt. But that doesn't mean that we should completely shun or ignore the science. You know, Tony Battagia used to say, like a broken record, you have to follow the science because otherwise you're sort of just guessing, you know, and I agree with that to a degree because the science always seems to be 10 years behind what common sense lifting produces in the gym, you know.
Yeah.
For example, oh no, I won't go there. That's probably too controversial. Or should I go there about the study that was just released recently about transgender athletes in the Olympics? I'm serious. They released a study that proved that transgender men who are now competing against women have an advantage over natural biological women. And that was the conclusion of the study. And someone actually did a PhD on that. And I'm like, fuck, is that not common sense? You know? But and that's, I guess, what's the topic that this guy Mike did his PhD on? Was it that lean, strong athletes do better than
I don't know this for fact. I learned this from watching this guy's video. But in this video, he talks about how even just the premise of Mike Israetels PhD is laughable, because apparently his PhD is on something like why being lean and muscular would make you outperform somebody athletically who is unfit and overweight, or being fit and muscular versus somebody who is unfit and overweight. And this guy Tanner goes, fucking really? You needed a PhD for that? That's not a PhD. That's common sense. So I don't know that that's exactly what it's about. I haven't fact checked that one, but apparently this guy has, and it made me laugh.
Yeah, certainly. Look, watch those two videos, even if not just for a laugh, to see how the fitness industry tears itself apart all the time. It's pretty funny. And
it's a funny thing, but I want to say this as well. We get comments from you guys, usually when people rewatch our live streams, where people praise us and say, I love that you guys don't go down this route of controversy. And we even, on the Yanni and my rebuttal to Jeremy Ethier's protein video, somebody said, this is a great video, just don't do this too much, because, that's not what people come to your channel for. And we're well aware of that. So this isn't a pull any of these guys down video. Yanni and I are really just having a discussion about what's going on. It's just
the only reason why we did that Jeremy Ethier protein video is because it infiltrated our tribe and started to cause confusion, and people were like, hold on a minute, do we really need to eat protein? And the reality is, and this goes so much back to common sense lifting and nutrition, like the same shit that worked 30 years ago still works today, and there's a reason for that. You don't need to get too complex with it. As far as and people make a business out of creating confusion in the fitness industry, which I think really sucks. But Rad recently has been really into Pavel Tselulin's. I'm probably making a mess of his name.
I think it's Tatseline, but I don't know if that's how you say it.
Yeah, and he's been doing Grease the Groove, which is, so common sense and obvious. Just practice the same thing over and over and over again, and you'll get better at it. And you're getting amazing results, and there's no complexity, there's no fanciness to it. It's just doing the same shit over and over again. If you see behind Rad's chair there, he's got 160 kilos on a deadlift bar, and he gets up and does 5 reps.
You know what?
6 times a day.
You've reminded me. I've got to do a set, so I'll get up and do a set right now.
Okay.
While we're here.
I'll keep talking, and I'll explain what you're doing. But basically, what he's done is he's chosen a number of lifts that he wants to get better at, and so he just practices them over and over and over again. And he doesn't. The most important thing is that he doesn't train to failure. So he never takes his body to that absolute point of failure. And for him, 160 kilograms on the barbell for a set of 5 is quite easy for him. So, and of course, you apply progressive overload to this concept. So when that becomes too easy, he'll go to 170. And when that becomes too easy, he'll go to 180, and so on and so forth. And so it's just about just doing the basics over and over and over again, And you notice he didn't do a warm-up set. He wasn't prepared or warmed up for this. It's an easy weight. It's not a weight that he's going to find really, really challenging, And I'm absolutely not recommending that anyone out there who's not super conditioned to deadlift and just walk up to a bar and lift 160 kilos. That is not something that you should do.
That'll wake you up on a podcast.
But for Rad, that's easy. I'm just explaining that. Although you made that look easy, it's not what we recommend for someone who's not fully trained to walk up to 160 kilos.
You got to earn the right to do that. Grease the Groove is something that we do with our more advanced members. We don't do it straight away. So if you want to learn more about it, come and join the UMS, and I can coach you through it. Oh,
yeah. Yeah, no, he's out of breath, mate. You need a bit more cardio.
Mate,
Yeah, but you went for a run this morning.
I go running 3 days a week. I've already done my run this morning.
Oh,
But I hold my breath. I hold my breath for the whole set. So,
yeah.
you know, I just take one breath and then it's just a, you know, between reps. So, you know.
Yeah, I found out this morning that one of the mistakes I've been making is that I hold my breath during sex. Literally, right at the end, when you're climaxing, I'm holding my breath. And I was like, and Leticia goes, you know that you hold your breath when you're climaxing? I was like, fuck, that's why I'm so out of breath at the end of it.
I think most guys do that, don't they?
Well, I'd be interested to know. We got a lot of guys on the stream this morning. Do you hold your breath when you're having an O, mate? I gave Leticia 3 of the best O's this morning. She was just on another world, jet lagged and everything.
Put the question out there to everybody: do you hold your breath? You know, when you.
Yeah.
Oh God. Anyway.
The conversation's going downhill. I told you I was tired. Yeah, look, Grease the Groove is a good example of just common sense lifting, like doing the same things over and over again. And we watch this in our gym with the power lifters, the way that they would produce incredible results, just repeating a few lifts without anything really fancy. You know, they choose rep ranges. They might manipulate the rep ranges a little bit, you know. But yeah, there comes a time when that is going to deliver one of the best results for you, you know, just mastering the technique of the fundamental lifts. And that's a big part of our program, you know?
Yeah, 100%. Well, I think, that's probably it for today. Yeah. We've shared our thoughts. Yeah. We've got to get to writing a script for a video that we're doing, Totally Raw.
Were you wearing Totally Raw? Yeah.
Were you wearing straps for those deadlifts or a mixed grip? I was wearing straps, and I'll tell you why I was wearing straps, because I can do it with a mixed grip very easily. But I do so much work on my grip. I'm also doing Grease the Groove with pull-ups, which means that I'm doing anywhere from 6 to 10 sets a day of pull-ups using my grip. I'm doing Grease the Groove on grip crushing. And I'm pretty tired after doing that deadlift, so I'm not doing a great job there. And the deadlift is not a grip exercise. It's not for grip. I had to remind myself of that when I recently watched some of Sebastian Orb's videos, Yanni. Bass did a video recently where he was talking about straps on deadlifting, and you know, the deadlift is a posterior chain exercise. That's why you do it. It's great for developing grip as well if you don't use straps. It's very, very good for that, but it's not the reason why you do a deadlift. You do a deadlift to strengthen your posterior chain. So I'm using straps for that because it's just so much grip work otherwise. It's just
and I think it's an important question, because it's one of the areas of the body that people blow up most commonly when you're a gym enthusiast, is the forearm extensors and flexors, and you end up with golfer's elbow or tennis elbow, and it's a nightmare. Yep. We used to call it gym herpes in our gym, because once you've got it, it's really hard off.
Yeah. I'm actually keeping it at bay right now. I've got like a 1 out of 10 golfer's elbow going on at the moment, which isn't getting worse. I'm able to manage it, but I'm managing it through.
It was bizarre when I had my hand reconstruction. I don't know if you
That's
guys
what I'm using, by the way. Totally Raw.
Down here, I broke a bunch of the bones in my hand, and I had reconstructive surgery, and then had to get the plates taken out. When I returned to the gym, almost instantly I started to develop a discomfort in the elbow that could have very easily gone into something more serious. And it was like bizarre how quickly it came on. It's the moment I started picking up dumbbells again, I just lost so much strength in the gripping muscles. And I actually had to consciously go back and start doing a bunch of our forearm and gripping exercises, and it's just like rad. I've got the Captains of Crush sitting here at my desk, and I do it all day just to I guess grease the groove on that as well, you know. It's the
best way to build strength, grease the groove. Before I actually went really deep on it in Pavel Tsatsouliny's teachings with Grease the Groove, I actually came up with my own conclusion, where I was thinking about, you know, how can I increase my grip strength, because what I didn't like about grip strength training the way that I used to do it is that it was always the last thing in a workout. I would never, prioritize grip strength when I'm doing my upper body workout. I'm going to prioritize my pull-ups and my dips and my bench press and rows and things like that. And then I'm going to do bicep and tricep work, or I'm going to do supplementary chest and back work. And then grip comes at the end. And by that time, there's just no chance of producing maximal strength. And I just thought to myself, who are the people that consistently have some of the strongest grip that I've ever seen? And it's tradies, mechanics, builders, plumbers. And what are they doing? They're using their grip all day long. They don't do workouts on it. They're just on the tools all day long. And when you shake a mechanic's hand that's been a mechanic for 10 years, man, they have a hand like it just seems so disproportionate to their body. They might be these beer gut dudes, with a pretty average frame, but their hands are just insanely strong. And same with most traders. And so I just thought, well, I'm just going to do grease the groove on grip training. And then when I read Pavel's book and watched some of his videos, he validated it. He said that is absolutely the way to do it. So
I remember when I was a mechanic, that was a really noticeable thing. You just end up with the stupidly strong hands and grip because you're on the spanners all day, you're on the tools all day, and you're cracking heavy fasteners that are seized together and things like that all day long. It's brutal on the hands.
Yep,
totally.
And it's so easy to do. Like I just did a set right then while we were sitting here. If you get yourself a set of crushers, you can just do it when you want.
Mate, I'm doing a set right now. I'm under the table.
And if you want to train for structural balance, you also do these, because you do the antagonist muscles in the antagonist movement. I actually learned this from Yanni.
Did you steal those from my drawer?
No, I bought my own set.
Or did you go and buy? Oh, you did.
I bought my own set.
Okay.
But yeah, we got that from Phil, our physiotherapist friend, who said, if you when you're doing your crushing, you got to expand your hands so that you're training the antagonists. So
that's right.
All right, team.
Well, guys, if you don't have any other questions for us, we'll bring this one in for a landing before I make a fool of myself
and start talking about more about orgasms and thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. Next week we're going to do an interview. I don't know if you saw the calendar invite, Yanni, but next week we're interviewing one of our tribe members who has had now a really, really cool story, because he got knee reconstructive surgery for a torn ACL. And I said, Yanni's going to want to talk to you about this. And he was training with us in the UMS for a year before he got the surgery. Fortunately, he followed my advice, and I said, man, you want to get as strong as you can before you do the surgery, which is really different for what people would think you'd want to do. And when he got the surgery, the surgeon said to him, you have such good muscle mass above and below your knee that you're going to recover from this so quickly. And it's taken him a couple of months, and he's back to full strength again with basically no issues. And I said that I wanted to interview him once he got back to a point where he was out of our knee rehab post-surgery training, which is where he's at now. So he's going to share his story with us. Aidan, he's been with us for well over a year now. So he's somebody that's got some really good insight into the UMS. So I'm really looking forward to that chat. And that'll be next week at the same time. So wherever you are in the world, it's 10:37 a.m. in Australia. We go live. We do our best to go live at 9:30 a.m. So 1 hour and 7 minutes before this every week. So yeah,
nice one.
Thanks so much for watching, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Take care.